It's British motorsport's big day, Silverstone's big occasion, and always a time of extreme tension in Formula One. The final countdown to the British Grand Prix, round 8 of the Formula One World Championship, and taking us through it, Martin Brundle and James Allen.
Thank you very much, Steve. What a beautiful sight. Silverstone in bloom, the summer, and a race about to unfold. Well, in a packed summer of top quality sport, the British Grand Prix has had to move a month earlier than its normal July date, but it's certainly not dampened the enthusiasm of the passionate and knowledgeable British crowd. It's had one unexpected benefit with 4 days of unbroken sunshine and some great on-track action as well, as we've come to expect really over the years from Silverstone. These three men, Alonso, Schumacher and Raikkonen, at the front of the grid for this afternoon's Grand Prix. After grabbing pole position yesterday away from Raikkonen and Schumacher, Alonso said, "We at Renault are the strongest." Well, he's certainly going to need to be to overcome the jinx of the Silverstone pole sitter. Only twice in the last 10 years here at Silverstone has the driver on pole position gone on to win the British Grand Prix. This is a difficult race to win, just like Monte Carlo a fortnight ago. Things happen here, and it's a track that really tests the drivers and the machinery. Well, certainly it was very close at the front between the three best drivers in the world at the moment. Schumacher perhaps a little dismayed to qualify third, but he said that he believes Ferrari are carrying more fuel, his car, than Alonso here. And, well, if he's right, then he'll have a better strategy for the race. But what if the 0.3 of a second that Schumacher here was slower than Alonso yesterday in qualifying? What if that's accounted for simply by the fact that Alonso did a better job, Martin? These two cars are extremely well matched. We've seen that over the last couple of months. And I was just talking to Sterling Moss underneath the GP2 podium. He'd gone to talk to Lewis Hamilton to congratulate him on the win. He was saying he feels that Schumacher now is on the downward slope of his career, that he would put Raikkonen and Alonso on their own and that Schumacher's on the slide. If that's right, then these races now, this period of this championship, are crucial for Schumacher to show that it isn't the case.
Yeah, certainly I would agree with Sterling, something I said at the beginning of the season. It's extremely close, but on the same day in the same car, I think Alonso and Raikkonen can just shade Michael these days, but we are talking fractions, and if Michael's got a better package or a better tyre this afternoon, he will go and win the race. Two things that fascinated me in the press conference yesterday. Alonso said, yes, I made a little mistake on my first effort, then I had a normal lap and I put it on pole. So for him, a normal lap is a perfect lap. He didn't say, I had a great lap or it was stunning or any, just it was a normal lap. And Michael, having just done 3.2 miles at the thick end of 150 mile an hour average, said, I can't believe how far off the pace I am. I'm 0.3 of a second, didn't expect to be that slow. And, you know, it's the click of your fingers, isn't it? It's just extraordinary. But that's how close they all are out there. And Michael then disadvantaged on the second row of the grid. Montoya was saying to me, I'm on the inside, it's the dirty side, but my experience of, I don't know, 10 British Grand Prix starts here and other races, there's a lot of grip on the inside at Silverstone. It's not necessarily the dirty line. And we saw in the GP2 race as well, them all getting away quite evenly. So I think people on the inside can still scamper up, but cops will be so fast, and they're still quite tight together as a pack, aren't they, when they get to the high-speed Beckett's too. So a challenging first few corners before they'll string out into a line down Hanger Straight.
Well, Kimi Raikkonen yesterday after qualifying said, look, I'm not in the championship hunt really between Michael Schumacher and Alonso. Alonso currently on 64 points, Schumacher 43, and Raikkonen's down in 4th on 27 points. So really, I've got nothing to lose tomorrow. Starting on the left-hand side, as you can see, of the front row of the grid. Remember last year where Montoya, in that same position with Alonso on pole, scampered down the inside of him into maggots on the first lap. Great acceleration off the line, something we hadn't expected to see, but particularly in this instance, with Raikkonen having nothing to lose, he knows and Alonso knows that he can go for it here this afternoon and really try and control the field. So that will definitely be something to watch out for off the start line as everybody starts to get ready to pull away. Two Ferraris there on the second row of the grid, and you saw the grid crawler before with Jenson Button shown down in 19th place and David Coulthard 11th. And Button, Martin, earlier in the programme, apologising to the British fans for his qualifying performance. He knows how much they support him, how much effort they give to supporting him. He feels embarrassed and he's very, very sorry. And what a thing for a Grand Prix driver to have to say on British Grand Prix Sunday.
Yeah, I feel so sorry for him. We all support Jenson, we all want him to do well, and well, I fear he's not going to get much chance this afternoon, but plenty more races to go this season. and he's got to keep his chin up. He really has, because he's got the speed, he's got the skill, he's just got to find a way to deliver it. It wasn't his fault that he's back there on the grid, but whatever strategy he chooses to run, if you're outside of the top 10 these days, you really are just going racing on a different strategy to try and steal a few points. You're not out there to get a podium unless there's a lot of accidents or unreliability, and only one car dropped out of this race last year. You do tend to have decent reliability. The only thing I would say, with a track temperature of 40 plus, we have seen them on more used tyres struggling to stay on the road. We may see even some of the grandee teams and drivers struggling and hanging on to the edge of a few gravel traps and even runoff areas if they start running out of rear grip.
Well, Silverstone has been the home now of the British Grand Prix consistently the last 20 years without a break. It's been the home of the British Grand Prix going back to the very late 40s and early 50s, of course. But it used to share the venue, the event with Brands Hatch now in the last 20 years, all on its own. And a tremendous crowd has turned out here this afternoon. They're not going to see a race of the equivalent of Mansell-mania, the great days of '92 when 130,000 people came here and then poured onto the track at the end to celebrate a wonderful home victory. It's a fairly low-key effort from the Brits, certainly as far as Formula One is concerned this weekend. But nevertheless, three tremendously potent drivers, all hungry for victory at the front, with an ample supporting cast. And we've seen many great British Grand Prix over the last 4 or 5 years. Lots of overtaking, some wonderful corners, real signature corners here. Copse, Stowe, Beckett's flat-out bridge corner. And hopefully we'll get some great onboard shots here this afternoon, and you'll be able to hear how much the drivers are flat on the throttle and barely use the brakes at all in the first half of the lap. It really is breathtaking how quick they are in the early part of the lap.
Alonso frightens the life out of the Renault team when he flicks his car around as much as he does, even more aggressively than most of them. They're just trying to find any heat they can to keep the pressures up, give them some kind of launch. Now they've been practicing all weekend their starts, the clutch, bite point, everything will be set, the target revs. They will be desperately trying to get maximum grip off the line and a good run down to turn one. And part of that process is to be sure they've got a consistent amount of tyre pressure and temperature.
It's a slightly curved grid here at Silverstone. One of its many characteristics. At the back there, Jarno Trulli, who had an engine failure yesterday in the first part of qualifying. So he lines up alongside Takuma Sato on the back row, and in front of them is Jenson Button on the right of your screens, right at the very back of the grid. Charlie Whiting, one of many Brits that important positions in Formula One. He's the race starter and race director. When the lights go out, the British Grand Prix will be go. Away they go. Good start by Raikkonen. And look at Alonso already looking in his mirrors to see where the McLaren was. The two Ferraris tucking behind. Someone's made up a lot of ground. It's one of the BMWs that's made up a couple of places. A tremendous start then by one of them as they pour down towards Maggots for the first time. And it's Alonso leading this race from Raikkonen in second place. Michael Schumacher is third. Massa, I think, is in fourth place with Fisichella up in fifth.
Spinner, we've got a spinner on the outside of Beckett. And Coulthard picking his way through. It's a Toyota and a Williams. Ralph is out. Mark Webber has connected with Ralph Schumacher. We think Montoya also had contact in Copse. The first corner, there was certainly contact midway through the pack. And Coulthard making his way nicely through there by the looks of it. Alonso leads Raikkonen, Michael Schumacher, Massa, Fisichella, Heidfeld, Barrichello. Montoya is still showing 8th at the moment.
So it was Heidfeld who made up the ground. 9th on the grid for the BMW Sauber driver. Now up into 6th place. He's passed both Barrichello and Montoya. And, well, they look really potent this weekend, BMW Sauber, all through the weekend. They're very quick in the high-speed corners here at Silverstone. And let's see how they get on. Safety car standing by.
Yeah.
We've got 2 cars that are obviously badly damaged, Jarno Trulli and Mark Webber. There they are. So at the moment, the safety car has been deployed. So the safety car will come out on the track and control the pace of the field then, while the damage is cleared away from that incident involving Ralf Schumacher, I beg your pardon, not Jarno Trulli, it's Ralf Schumacher and Mark Webber.
Yes, we've seen a lot of safety cars this weekend, particularly in the GP2 race. We've seen some unusual incidents, and 2 cars off on the outside of what's a nothingy left-hander onto Hangar Straight is quite unusual. Only contact, really, will get you into those barriers. You can't really sort of go and have an accident over there. And there's debris on the track, obviously bits of that Toyota. That's bad news for them. Ralph qualified very well. Truly was on the back of the grid with an engine problem. Toyota said before this weekend, judge us on Silverstone, and the Toro Rosso there of Scott Speed coming into the pits. So we're going to see a replay now of the start. Alonso away beautifully from pole, Raikkonen too, Michael Schumacher slightly under pressure, and we're cutting back to their different camera angle altogether. It was a BMW making its way down the inside, and this is Montoya struggling then. There goes the BMW, bit of contact. Oh, somebody came straight into the side. Villeneuve presumably thumped into the side of Montoya.
Back live, Jenson Button.
Great work, by the way, gentlemen. Just keep the pressure on at the restart. Just make sure the tyres are hot.
Great work means he's up to 14th place already. Obviously some accident places he's gained there, but obviously got a good run. Presumably he'll be very, very heavily fueled as well right back there. So this is playing quite nicely into his hands and keeping the pack tighter. Now we're going to see somebody spinning on the outside of, and there's the contact. It looked like, I suspect, Scott Speed got into the back of, oh, big accident there, big contact between Webber and Ralf Schumacher. Actually, the man in the foreground is the culprit for that incident. He got into the back of Ralf Schumacher there on the second part of Beckett. Schumacher collects it all up and then collects Webber at the same time. Mark really with nowhere to go.
Well, it's a strange one because Ralf Schumacher was 7th on the grid and Scott Speed was 15th, so Ralph had obviously had a poor start to be even consorting with Scott Speed in the midfield, and clearly that is the net result. There is the American driver then in the pit garage having at least a nose cone changed, and poor old Mark Webber, just a complete victim in that one. He just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah, Mark was trying to make a bit of ground around the outside and obviously didn't really spot that Ralph was coming his way quite so dramatically. And Ted has news for us.
Yeah, well, I'm down at McLaren, and they were ready for Juan Pablo Montoya with fuel and tyres in case he wanted to come in. But as I speak, the McLaren boys are standing down. So obviously Montoya's radioed back, says despite that whack, the car actually feels okay, but it might be a different story when the car gets back up to full speed, Martin. But just to explain the Nick Heidfeld progress, he was on new tyres, both BMWs on new tyres at the beginning of that race.
Yes, I think many of them were. They can gain themselves probably 10 metres in the sprint down to the first corner with absolutely fresh tyres. So it did seem to work extremely well for the BMW drivers. The knock on the side of Montoya was fairly square on, wasn't it? The cars are quite strong in that respect. It's only when you get lateral movement. And this is Jenson then up behind the Red Bull of what would be clean. And Jenson got a very, very good view of that incident and managed to avoid it nicely.
Certainly did. There is the BMW of the fast-starting Nick Heidfeld. This is UK, the third biggest market for BMW, so I'm sure they'll have plenty of people here in hospitality, and they'll be enjoying this very much. Points in 5 of the last 7 races for them. The lights are off on the safety car, so we're going to have a restart any moment now. Alonso will drop back from the safety car. He will control the pace of the field, and then he will decide the exact moment at which he wants to drop the accelerator. And you're not allowed to overtake until you've crossed the start-finish line. That's the golden rule of restart. As soon as you cross the line, you're able to go ahead.
Yeah, lying some rubber down onto the track was Alonso. He needs to remember to switch his traction control back on, which he certainly will do. But they'll spin like a top, these things, if you just switch that. And he's backing them up, and they're not going to be happy with that. That's too much. You're not really supposed to back the field up that much. You've got to, you take over, you become the safety car, the pace car, and the pace car.
He's playing concertina, Martin.
Yeah.
He's playing games with Kimi Raikkonen. He wants Raikkonen to just have to hit the brakes. Looks in his mirror. The moment Raikkonen hits the brake, he hits the throttle. He's done it before like that. It always works for him, Alonso. I imagine the other drivers have got something to say about it. But across the line they go. The British Grand Prix is restarted. Look at Montoya side by side down the pit straight with Rubens Barrichello, his South American friend. That's the battle for 7th place. Alonso leading Raikkonen. Michael Schumacher is 3rd. 4th is Massa. 5th is Fisichella. 6th is Heidfeld. 7th is Rubens Barrichello. 8th, Juan Montoya. As we go down the hangar straight with Montoya right in the slipstream of the Renault Fisichella.
Yeah. And that's...
Raikkonen in the slipstream of Alonso, I mean, for the lead. This is for the lead.
Absolutely, and Raikkonen appeared to have better straight line speed, and Michael Schumacher was driving into this massive void of air, a hole in the air made by two Formula One cars, and he got tremendous speed down there and thought about having a look. Two completely different styles of coming out of club, but down into Abbey, Raikkonen is having to go defensive, and they're so close to touching. Good driving from Raikkonen. Now he's slightly wrong-footed on the exit, but Michael can't do anything about it. I think also the stewards will be talking to Alonso about that restart. Not smart from him. If Raikkonen had hit him in the rear wing and broken the wing post or the under tray, it would have compromised his own race. You become the pace car, and you then have to take the field in a sensible way back into racing conditions. But it's worked out okay this time for Fernando Alonso, and he's got a little bit of breathing space as he goes over the line. Half a second.
I think Michael Schumacher would have loved it if the two cars in front of him had taken each other out, but it was very, very close indeed before that restart. So Alonso still leading, half a second from Raikkonen, but Michael Schumacher got really close to the McLaren, didn't he, in the second half of that lap. Possibly no more than 2 or 3 inches away, his front left wheel from the bodywork of the McLaren. Behind them, the rest of the field spreading out a little bit now. David Coulthard is in 11th place, where he started for Red Bull Racing. Jenson Button still in 14th place, and Jarno Trulli in the Toyota is the car in front of Jenson.
Oh, these are the three we've been talking about. They're close enough, aren't they? Michael Schumacher's got quite a lot of understeer in that Ferrari. I think that's why he's taking the tighter line early on the exit of club. There are very much two ways of doing that. You can compromise your speed, but it's much shorter around the inside, of course, or let the car move to the outside, take the longer journey around the outside of club, but give yourself better traction. And, well, what a handful that looks underneath Montoya at the moment as he chases Nick Heidfeld in the BMW.
Under pressure for his drive, Juan Pablo Montoya. His manager, Julian Jacobi, is going around the paddock, knocking on a lot of doors of motorhomes, trying to find someone who might be prepared to take his driver. He's certainly used to being paid quite a lot of money, Montoya. And with the success he enjoyed with Williams, hasn't really followed him this year in McLaren. 3 wins with the team last year, but yet to get off the mark in victories this time round. Here he's chasing down Nick Heidfeld in the BMW Sauber for 6th place.
Yeah, Montoya will be watching closely young Lewis Hamilton's progress, won't he? Because Lewis might just be a shoo-in for that drive. So Montoya with a lot of work to do. He's falling quite a long way back. He really, I think, has a faster car than Heidfeld. Louise has found Ralf Schumacher.
Ralph, you and Mark both look to be innocent parties in that.
Yeah, we were. I mean, basically it all started with my very bad start. I lost too many positions, got into a mess, into the traffic, and couldn't do anything about it. That's basically how things can happen. I mean, it's a big mess. Nobody, has the real space, and nobody does it on purpose, obviously. Did
you see Scott coming, or was it all a bit of a surprise?
I didn't see anything. I mean, they had cars all over me, so it's really difficult to see.
Thanks, Ralph.
Louise does so well finding those drivers amazingly quickly. They had quite a travel back to the pits. We just saw Button overtaking Liuzzi, it was, for P12. He's now up behind David Coulthard. They're 11th and 12th. So the race pace for Button looks pretty strong.
He's certainly charging, isn't he? He's also passed Jarno Trulli up into 12th place. This is how he got past Liuzzi.
Down the classic move down the inside of Stowe, and well, we were concerned that V10 would be very fast in a straight line, but it's certainly not around here. And Button then making his way forward. He'll be very satisfied with the early stage. We're only on lap 7, but with the early stages of this Grand Prix.
Yeah, he's in 12th place at the moment. That is the Honda garage. Nick Fry, the team principal, on the left of the screens, just watching Jenson's progress. His teammate Rubens Barrichello is in 8th place at the moment, 11 seconds behind. We're only on lap 7, and already the top 10 is really stringing out quite a lot. It's one of the phenomenon you get here at Silverstone. It's called field spread, and simply means that the cars just spread out quite a lot in the opening stages, and that has a big impact on race strategy, as we will find later on. On board then with Jenson Button, the 2 British drivers together on the racetrack, battling for 11th place.
Coulthard went in very early. He's locked the front brake. He'll get away with that, but Button will be in a great place to get the slipstream up to Abbey. But Coulthard feeling the need already to defend his position down on the way into Stowe and compromise his line. Jensen is on fire coming through the field. This is nice to see, isn't it? But this pair then are two Brits. The only two Brits in the race have got a chance of scoring some points. Alonso leads by just 0.7 of a second though. The top five are actually only 3.6 seconds apart. It's all going on up there, and it's certainly all going on between Coulthard and Button.
It certainly is. Felipe Massa in the Ferrari in 4th place is just dropping away from the big three names in front of him, Alonso, Raikkonen and Michael Schumacher. Alonso sets the fastest lap of the race so far, a 1:23, but we will see considerably quicker than that as the fuel burns off from these cars over the course of this stint. Massa then dropping back a little bit in 4th, and he's going to start coming under some pressure from Giancarlo Fisichella in the 2nd Renault, currently running in 5th place. There they are. And looking back to Heidfeld and Montoya.
Top five in the first sector, which is nearly half a minute long, are less than a 10th apart. They're so even on pace through Copse, Beckett's down towards Stowe, and still then the gap is only 4 seconds between the top five. We've got a great race on our hands here. It's difficult at the moment to really pick somebody who's got an advantage anywhere in particular. They're lapping so closely.
Well, we're riding on board with Jenson Button, 53 laps still to go. Close enough at the front, less than 2 seconds separating Alonso, Raikkonen and Michael Schumacher. They're all studying each other, studying the performance of the cars. Only they know, of course, what the fuel strategies are, but I'm expecting all three of them to be pretty close together on their first pit stops, and from then, of course, the strategists will decide exactly how long to run these 2nd and 3rd stints. On board with Juan Pablo Montoya, heading out down the Hangar Straight, building up to 190 miles an hour then in the slipstream of Nick Heidfeld's BMW.
Well, Montoya didn't get a clear lap in qualifying, so it's not like he's out of position because he's carrying more fuel. He's just plain out of position. So he really does need to clear Heidfeld extremely quickly. He's 10 seconds adrift now of his teammate who's running in 2nd place. So very, very bad news here. That collision in the first corner is going to make it a long afternoon for Juan Pablo Montoya.
Yep, last year's race winner, of course. Very close battle here with Fernando Alonso for the victory in 2005, and a couple of occasions they were very close to each other in maggots around the time of the start and the end of the first pit stops. It was a tremendous scrap, but it's really his teammate Raikkonen who's contesting the victory this year, and at the first time that McLaren have really been at the front of the grid in 2006. Fastest man on the racetrack at the moment. Oh no! Jenson Button has gone off the racetrack. Sounds like he's kept the engine in. He has, but he's beached in the middle of nowhere, and the engine's on fire. Oh dear. Half of the British Challenge is extinguished here at Silverstone. It started pretty ignominiously from 19th, and it's ended very ignominiously in the sand trap for Jenson Button.
I wonder if he spun off on his own oil or something, because it's unusual to see a car overheat quite that quickly unless he'd been scampering through the gravel trap for longer than we initially saw. But I just wonder if there was some fluid leaking out of the back of the car that span him off the track.
I think that's a very good call, Martin. It's a very good chance that we have seen it many times before. A very dismayed pit crew watch on as Jenson waves to the crowd on his way back. Lap 10 of the British Grand Prix. Fernando Alonso leading Kimi Raikkonen, Michael Schumacher 3rd, Felipe Massa is 4th, Giancarlo Fisichella is in 5th place. And, well, you see the smoking car down there. It's Jenson Button, I'm afraid. And this is what happened. Looks like, yep, the engine's let go, Martin, and he's gone round on the oil. Yeah,
he managed to keep the engine going. He tries to drive it out of the gravel trap. And in fact, he ends up further into it as you've only got a limited steering lock on these things. But the reason he span is for sure it was leaking oil already. And the other drivers are going to have to be a little bit wary into the complex there. But it looks, well, sometimes you lose an oil line. Hydraulics, the hydraulic fluid can burn like that as well and is equally slippery and will soon spit you off the racetrack, unfortunately. So, Button then, not his error.
The right-hand bank of cylinders letting go on that Honda engine. He walks back, he manages a smile. It's really all he can offer his many fans around this racetrack. It's been an utterly miserable weekend for Jenson Button. Very little of it is of his own making. Not quite quick enough in the qualifying session, but really should have had a chance.
Do you want me to speak?
Great to see him shaking hands with the fans there. They really appreciate his efforts. And let's hope next year's British Grand Prix we'll see Jenson Button towards the front of the grid. The crowd below us in the grandstand all applauding him as he walks back. Well, I'm delighted to say that Ron Dennis is joining us from the McLaren pit wall, the boss of the McLaren team. Ron, you must be delighted with the performance so far of your driver, Kimi Räikkönen. He's right in the hunt there with Alonso and Michael Schumacher.
Things are going quite well. I think we have a more durable tyre than some of the other Michelin runners, so waiting for things to settle down. Of course, the biggest challenges to us is obviously going to be the Ferraris, but so far so good. We're in now fuel conservation mode.
Is that why Alonso's beginning to just move away at the front, Ron?
Just stand by.
Can you hear us down there, Ron? Yeah, the whole field just pouring past Ron on the pit lane.
It's a little quieter now. Yeah.
Okay, is that why Alonso's just moving away at the front now? You're intentionally just conserving fuel. Why is that?
Well, obviously the first round of pit stops are going to be quite important, and it's not just covering Fernando, it's also making sure that we stay ahead of Michael. So the real race will, I think, sort of unfold towards the latter part of the Grand Prix.
Did Kimi say anything about that restart procedure of Alonso's? That looked a bit cheeky from where we were standing.
Well, I don't think it particularly hurt us, so I mean, that's just motor racing.
Ron, in Monaco, you were carrying a bit more fuel than Alonso, and it looked like it was going to give you a good result. I mean, do you feel that the strategy in this early part of the race is going to be decisive this afternoon?
Well, it's always interesting how good your intelligence is. I think probably Alonso might even be a bit longer than us, but not much, and Michael a bit shorter. But we'll see how that the quality of that information pans out.
It's always a pleasure to talk to you from the pit wall. We hope to hear from you a bit later on, Ron. Thank you very much indeed.
No problem. Speak to you later in the race.
Always wonderful to talk to a guy right at the coalface, making decisions about race strategy, and to get that kind of insight. Really only in Formula One can you do that kind of thing. Alonso leading then, 2.1 seconds the margin from Kimi Räikkönen. Michael Schumacher is third now, just a second behind Räikkönen. Massa still fourth, but still falling away a little bit from the front three. And then Fisichella fifth. Heidfeld is now almost 10 seconds behind the Renault, with Montoya still breathing down his neck in that battle for sixth place, and Rubens Barrichello still eighth. And a quick David Coulthard check. He is still, as we are 13 laps into the race, in the same place he started on the grid, 11th.
Yeah, and he's got close company with Jarno Trulli, who started at the back of the field and is moving through quite quickly. Fresh engine in that Toyota of Trulli's, and he is going nicely. But Alonso has put the pedal down. He's definitely, whether he's plugged in and listening to radio conversations, I don't know, but he's absolutely flying out there now, trying to build himself a cushion.
Well, it's rather strange, but where Jenson Button's engine let go is at Brooklands, just the other side of the BRDC from where we are. And I can smell the engine, Louise Goodman. He's with you, I know. We can smell it in the commentary box. It was a massive blow-up.
Jenson, they're just telling me they can smell your engine in the commentary box, a massive blow-up.
Yeah, it was, and a massive blow as well in terms of the race, because, you know, I started 19th, I was up to 11th, I think, or 12th. Things are looking pretty sweet. I think I could have got past DC in the next couple of laps. The car was working very well. It's just a pity, really. You know, yesterday was tough for us, and getting put on the weighbridge, and today's even tougher, because I think we could have had a good comeback drive, and it was going very well. So
just hasn't gone your way this weekend, has it?
Not really. You could say that. But you could say that for the last race as well. But it's not all bad luck, you know. We need to improve in certain areas, and we will, you know. Monday, I'm sure we'll have a big meeting, just as normal, just to see where we're going from here, and sort out our little issues, because, you know, qualifying was very disappointing, but today was good. The car felt great in the race, and I was a little bit surprised at how good it felt, so that's positive.
How quickly do you think you can turn things around and get back to winning ways for the British fans?
Winning ways is going to be difficult in the next few races. But Canada's a good circuit. I like Canada. We've always gone pretty well there. apart from put it in the wall last year. Apart from that, the car works well there. I love the circuit, and we just got to hope that's enough, because we're not as quick as the first few teams, as we can see out there now with Rubens, you know. But it's a shame for the British fans and for the team and for myself, because that was a good race. Personally, I felt like I was very quick, and it's just so much fun here, especially overtaking and in front of the fans. You can see them all waving their flags and stuff. It's a good atmosphere, and yeah, it's a pity we couldn't get a better result.
Bad luck, mate.
Well, if your football match went to penalties at the moment, you wouldn't choose Jensen to take one, would you? He's being so unlucky, but chin up chap, we're all right behind you, and for sure he can turn it around, as Alonso is turning it around at the front of the field. 2.9 seconds clear now. Does Raikkonen or Michael Schumacher have an answer to the young Spaniard? If they have, they need to deliver it anytime soon.
Well, up here in the commentary box, we have a computer that shows us the sector times. There's 3 sectors on every Grand Prix lap, and Alonso has done 4 consecutive purple sectors. So not only did he have the fastest lap, but he's carried it over into this lap as well. He's absolutely putting the hammer down now to try and shake off the challenge of Raikkonen and Michael Schumacher. I have to say, Jenson Button was doing a great job, though, cutting through the field, wasn't he? Up to 12th place, chasing down David Coulthard just before that engine let go. And you consider he started 19th, he was doing really well. So 46 laps to go here at Silverstone, an awful lot still to unfold.
Still only 8 seconds separating the top 5, then they're all buried in the low 1:22s. Not too much to choose between them on in terms of pace. They've pulled significantly away then from Heidfeld in 6th, and I would imagine a very, very frustrated Montoya tucked up behind him in 7th. Barrichello can't hang on to that pace even. He's kind of the 3rd group really, with Rosberg, Villeneuve and Coulthard. Truly still very, very close to the back of Coulthard's car.
Interesting there, Ron Dennis saying that their information is that Alonso's probably got a little bit more fuel in the car than they have, and possibly Michael Schumacher a little less. We're getting close to the pit stop windows now, Martin. Talking about lap 17 to sort of 21 for the front runners, possibly Alonso coming in around lap 19, I've heard. So we're not too far away from that now. Michael Schumacher is pushing hard, which is always a telltale sign that he's getting ready to make a stop. And what will Ross Brawn, the Ferrari strategist, do to get him ahead of Kimi Raikkonen? He's currently 1.5 seconds behind him, so that's clearly why Michael is closing the gap up before the first round of pit stops come through. Intriguing tactical battle as well as the battle between the drivers here.
Yes, Michael's fast in that first sector, but he can't translate it into the entire lap. He's still falling back at about 1/4 second per lap. I mean, they had a great test, didn't they, in Barcelona last week? Ferrari came here talking a very, very good story in terms of their raw pace in high-speed corners and long corners like this. And, well, we're not seeing it at the moment, and Michael is pushing hard.
Certainly is, as he always does. The flags are still flying here in the grandstand. The sun is still shining. People are enjoying this. It's been a wonderful weekend, really, you have to say. A British Grand Prix special. Carnival atmosphere, as always. Michael Schumacher here, his 15th visit to the British Grand Prix. And there's a mixed relationship with the British media, but he certainly feels appreciated by the British fans here. Welcome back to the carnival atmosphere of Silverstone. This is lap 18 of the British Grand Prix. That's the fastest speeds going through turn 5, which is Beckett's. Fisichella the fastest, Barrichello you can see as well. The race leader Alonso down in 5th place only. Michael Schumacher not appearing even amongst the top 8 in terms of the speed they carry through there. Quite an interesting graphic that. And look at Montero in the Midlands, the 6th fastest through Beckett's. That's about a lot of commitment from him. A lot of rumours that the Midland team are looking around for a new buyer. Those rumours are not new. and Alex Schneider keeps denying them, but a Dutch internet company apparently very seriously interested in taking over that team. So watch this space in terms of one of the Formula 1 teams changing hands. Jarno Trulli and Toyota pits from 12th.
Well, that's a surprise, and he started right on the back row of the grid. Normally you fuel long back there. I think the optimum strategy is to pit on lap 22. So any variance on that, you can see sort of different concepts, different ideas. And Ferrari are getting ready already, and we are told it's for Michael Schumacher. So that's bad news for Ferrari if they're the first ones in. We thought they had more fuel on board than the McLarens, didn't we? Well, that was wrong. So Alonso still steaming away, and indeed Michael Schumacher pits.
He does indeed. Well, Ron Dennis's information was right then. He said he believed that Michael had less fuel than Raikkonen, and in turn he believed that Alonso had a little bit more. So let's see how this all plays out. Ross Brawn, the chief strategist of Ferrari, has made a choice. He's put 8.5 seconds the stationary time, so he's put around about 60 kilos of fuel in Michael Schumacher's car, and that will take him about 23 laps in my calculation into the race. We will see whether that's enough. And he's fed back out in front of Rubens Barrichello, who was in 8th place. So Michael down to 7th now.
Yeah, his old teammate Rubens Barrichello having a solid weekend again. The man who won the 2003 British Grand Prix on that extraordinary day when the weather kept changing, people running on the circuit, all sorts of things. One of the finest Grand Prix drives I remember commentating on. A superb drive that day. But Rubens kind of solid today, lapping in the 23s. The leaders are in the 122s, but he's hanging on to 8th place and 1 World Championship point at the moment. Long way to go, though.
Well, he's got 2 Renaults, 2 McLarens and 2 Ferraris in front of him, so at the moment they're hogging all the points in this year's World Championship. It's very difficult for Honda, for Toyota, for Red Bull Racing and those sort of teams to get any points this season. Very different picture from last year. And into pits comes Massa and Raikkonen.
Yeah, Alonso responded with a smile on his face, no doubt, to Schumacher's early pit stop with a new fastest lap of the race on a 1:21.8. Ted's down there.
Yeah, that's a lot of fuel for Kimi Raikkonen in there. Felipe Massa, the stop's going okay. That's not so bad either, 8.7. But it's going to be very tight, Martin, between Massa and Giancarlo Fisichella. Renault need Fisichella to get involved in the race at the front and get past Massa here. So let's see how long Fisi can go now.
Yes, Raikkonen feeds back in front of Michael Schumacher, so that worked okay for McLaren. They got quite a lot of fuel in that car. Fisichella needs to bring himself into play right now. You're absolutely correct. And Barrichello pitted from what was 8th, as we know.
Yeah, so Rubens Barrichello has made his stop. That moves Jacques Villeneuve up into 9th place. Also going well, Nico Rosberg. Williams have had a tough time this weekend so far, but Rosberg had a good start from 12th on the grid, and he's now worked his way up into 8th. Yet to make his first stop, of course, but it's one of those, it looks like possibly one of those trademark Rosberg charges here this afternoon that we've seen a couple of times in this, his rookie season. We're at 1/3 race distance, the 60-lap British Grand Prix. McLaren getting ready for their other driver, Juan Pablo Montoya. At the front, Alonso, fastest man on the racetrack at the moment, 10.5 seconds ahead of his teammate Fisichella, neither of the Renaults having pitted.
Still Alonso then the only man in the 1:28, and Fisichella, presumably with traffic, a 1:22.9. He needed a better lap than that. Heidfeld up to 3rd at the moment for BMW because he hasn't stopped. And there is Montoya. He'll be so pleased to get in, get a fresh set of tyres and not have the BMW of Heidfeld right on the end of his front wing. And now he's got a chance. If he can clear Heidfeld, he was a dozen seconds behind the leading pack. Montoya he's got enough time left to haul himself back up to the leaders.
Intriguing stuff here at Silverstone. Fisichella setting purple sector times now, putting the hammer down. He's had a talking to from Flavio Briatore. Sometimes he's right up the front, sometimes he's not. And Flavio said you need to turn it on every fortnight, Fisichella. That's the job you've got to do if you want to hold on to this drive. Renault in the hunt for a replacement for Fernando Alonso. Heikki Kovalainen, the team test driver, likely to be promoted. All of the engineers absolutely raving about him. But can Fisichella hold on to his seat, or are they going to try and get somebody else in there? The time will tell. We're riding on board with Michael Schumacher.
Alonso, another new fastest lap, a 1:21.6 as Fisichella pits. And he had a couple of scruffy laps in there, presumably, as I said, with traffic that may just compromise his entire afternoon. He didn't do enough in the critical phase. Alonso was 14 seconds clear of him, although an element of that was Fizzy having to negotiate the pit lane. No, it's not going to work at all. So he's just coming out just behind Michael Schumacher. So actually, that's not too bad. It's got him ahead of Massa. That's important.
Job done. Job done as far as Renault are concerned. That's absolutely what Ted Kravitz was talking about, and they've done it. So that's great news for Fisichella. He's now free. Massa fell off the back of the leaders, and that's the price he's paid. Renault getting ready then for race leader Fernando Alonso, and well, quite a few hearts will be beating around this racetrack. As always, it's a passionate business, Formula One racing, but one heart that's going to be beating particularly hard is our own Louise Goodman. She's about to take part in a pit stop down at Midland, and we'll hopefully see that shortly. But into the pits comes your race leader, Fernando Alonso.
Pretty cautious against the white line. He's not up against it in terms of he had a decent lead. No point in risking a pit lane speed infringement. And the Renault boys, 22 people, calmly go about their work. They will have timed the fuel that went into his main rivals this afternoon and responded and fueled accordingly. I kind of thought he might be stationary a little bit longer than that. He's going to come out easily in the lead. I'm just surprised they didn't put a touch more fuel in than that. Look how far he is ahead. He's out of Copse, and Michael Schumacher's just coming onto the pit straight.
Yeah, it's one of the Super Aguris, Takuma Sato, making a stop from 17th place, the Honda B team, effectively, although this weekend they started alongside Jenson Button at the back of the grid. There's Michael Schumacher pushing on hard through Beckett's.
Trap.
Right, here's Louise Goodman, our own Louise Goodman, pit lane reporter, about to become the first woman ever to take part in a Formula One pit stop. She's going to take the left rear wheel off, and that might sound simple to you back sitting at home. Any old person can take a wheel off a car, but bear in mind, this wheel has done 23 laps at huge temperatures going around the place. They stick, they easily get stuck. It's very, very hard. The wheels are very heavy, much heavier than you expect them to be. And there she goes. Wheel comes off. Well done, Louise.
They stuck her on the outside as well. They didn't give her the easy touch on the inside, away from the main traffic going through. So she's happy enough with that. And I tell you, when those cars come down there at 60-odd miles an hour into the garage of what I would normally say men, one of them, of course, wasn't this weekend. It's a nice change, isn't it? Is that the first lady ever, I think, to be involved in a Formula One pit stop, we're told. So good stuff there from Louise. Alonso, though, has a 5.5-second lead over Heidfeld, because Heidfeld has yet to stop. Good pace from him, though. He's gone a long way into the Grand Prix. So the real lead of Alonso's is 10 seconds over current third-place man Kimi Räikkönen.
Yeah, he extended that lead when Räikkönen made his stop. That was the moment when Alonso really put the hammer down. And I noticed that when Alonso came in, he had a good, healthy margin over Räikkönen. So that's worked out extremely well for the Renault team as Louise gets prepared to go back to the day job. Hopefully we'll be hearing from her again soon. Also down in the pit lane for us, Ted Kravitz, and he can tell us some news about Juan Pablo Montoya.
Yeah, his car, James, is much more badly damaged than we realised. Have a look on the pictures, see if you can get a close-up of the right-hand side pod. There's a massive hole in the leading edge of the side pod, which A, must be completely ruining the aerodynamics, but B, I mean, it's carbon fibre everywhere. I had a good look at it when he came in for the pit stop. And, I mean, it was the right state, but what can they do? They can only put gaffer tape on it. It's going to hurt Montoya badly.
That could be damaging the cooling as well. The airflow through there is critical. Particularly, there's a lot of electronic control units in there. We're just reading on the computer there'll be an investigation between 7, 9 and 21, which is Speed, Ralf Schumacher and Webber on the first lap. That won't take long. It was all Scott Speed's fault.
There's the damage Ted's talking about on the side pod of the McLaren. That certainly does look a bit tasty. Well, Scott Speed's been in the steward's room before, of course, hasn't he, with David Coulthard, and the stewards threw the book at him. Tony Scott Andrews, the chief race steward, who really showed his teeth in Monte Carlo a couple of weeks ago, throwing the book at Michael Schumacher for his qualifying infringement. And I imagine that Scott Speed will have that book down the back of his trousers when he goes in to see Tony Scott Andrews. Well, we just saw Louise taking the wheel off. How hard was it, Louise?
It was all right, actually. My heart's still going 90 to the dozen. I'm not sure whether it's still excitement or just relief. It actually happened. It felt a lot slower than I was expecting it to be. I felt quite calm. I could see Thiago coming down the pit lane. And really, it's just a matter of doing what you've been rehearsing time and time over. Felt a wee bit different. The tyres were incredibly sticky. And obviously the wheel rim was hot as well. But it was good. I'm really, really pleased I did it. And a great response from all the guys as well.
Well done, girl. Louise Goodman, and the first to do a number of things in Formula One. But she's now the first woman to take part in a Formula One pit stop. At the front then, Alonso leading Heidfeld by 5.9 seconds. Raikkonen's third. He is now 5 seconds behind Heidfeld. And Michael Schumacher, we're riding on board with him into the complex as he comes through to complete lap 25. Has just over a second and a half margin over Fisichella, albeit that he is a little bit faster at the moment. So Fisichella is not catching Michael Schumacher, as Heidfeld, who got a wonderful start from 9th place on the grid. He was 6th into the first corner, and now, having got as high as 2nd place in this race, he makes his pit stop. Where will he feed back?
His pace was very strong, you know, so it's not going to work out for Montoya or anything, although some problem. Can't find a gear, can he? I think it sounds like it's stuck in neutral. Oh, that's ruined it. He was actually on a very, very good pace at that point. Rosberg pits for Williams. He's been going well too, and was 8th when he came into the pits.
That cost Heidfeld at least 7 seconds. Whatever it was, just as you say, it seemed like he couldn't get a gear. Coulthard into the pits then from 10th place in the Red Bull Racing. Podium finisher in Monaco 2 weeks ago. Donned the Superman red cape when he went up to collect his trophy in the Royal Box. And, well, I think he's back down to earth a little bit this weekend at Silverstone, as the other Midland driver, Christian Albers, makes his pit stop. Very jumpy on the throttle.
Just about leapt out of the box, didn't it? Schumacher must have his mirrors pretty full of Fisichella, though Fizzy's dropped back with a 1:24.4, so he's not got much pace either. And the only man who's gone out and immediately had the pace again is Alonso. How does he do that? He just seems to have the confidence and the balance. He must be working so well with the team, the engineer, and he's got it covered, hasn't he, in all conditions and all phases of the race.
Well, they do say that when it's all working for you and you're winning races and getting pole positions, it's actually very easy. Everything just feels easy. Tremendous amount of effort, of course, going on in the cockpit of Alonso. A lot of hard work behind the scenes at Renault as well, with all the engineers and technicians, but they do seem to have control of Formula One at the moment. Now, Scott Speed was involved in the incident at the start with Ralf Schumacher and Mark Webber. He's already fallen foul of the stewards once before this season. Louise, how's he feeling at the moment?
Well, let's ask him. Scott, 3 of you tangling on that opening lap. Just talk us through it from your perspective.
Yeah, well, I had an awesome start off the line. I had a great launch, and I got by Christian Antonio. And I was trying to go around the outside of Ralph in one of the Maggots and Beckett's corners, and it was actually working. I actually got alongside him a bit. But when we went into the right, I think it was such kind of an unexpected place to pass. He didn't quite see me, and we tangled. But in any case, it was a racing incident. I don't think it was really anyone's fault. It's just unfortunate for both of us.
Did you speak to him about it afterwards?
No, I haven't got a chance to speak to him, but I don't imagine there'd be any issues.
All right, thanks, Scott.
Thanks.
He's going to be an MTV presenter, isn't he, when he finishes being a driver, for sure. But I'm not sure the others will see it quite like that, but they'll get the videos out and study it closely. But Scott then trying to make the best of a good start for the sounds of it, and ended up tangling with Ralph, who we know from earlier on had a bad start that he met in the middle.
Yeah, Ralf Schumacher has started 7th on the grid. Scott Speed starting from 15th. So as you say, they met in the middle. It was in the right-hander in the middle of Beckett's that the problem occurred. And basically, he spun Ralf Schumacher around into the path of Mark Webber. So those 2 cars were eliminated on the spot, and Speed carried on for a little while, but has since retired. 4 retirements from the Grand Prix then, as Villeneuve pits from 6th place.
Villeneuve's demonstrating that car on Tuesday in Kensington Gardens, a brief run up and down with it. But today, he's got some work to do if he wants to get a decent haul of points. Lots of pit stops going on then, Liuzzi and Klein, Toro Rosso and Red Bull.
Yes, if you want to get close to a Formula One car, then Kensington Gardens is definitely a place to be on Tuesday afternoon. A major event involving Jacques Villeneuve. You'll be able to hear the engine, the volume, see the speed, and get a feel for what a Formula One car looks like. Kensington Gardens in London on Tuesday. 33 laps to go then. We're approaching half distance in the British Grand Prix. Alonso leads from Raikkonen. Michael Schumacher's 3rd. Fisichella 4th. Massa 5th. Villeneuve has just made his pit stop. Montoya and Heidfeld rounding out the top 7. at Raikkonen and Michael Schumacher. Schumacher just doesn't seem to have the pace to deal with the McLaren here this weekend. In the opening phase, it looked as though maybe he was conserving a little bit of energy. Felt maybe he was being held up slightly by Raikkonen, but he didn't have enough speed when it mattered and wasn't able to leapfrog him in the first round of pit stops. A different tactical game going on now in the second part of this Grand Prix. We'll see if he has any more luck next time round.
Nip and tuck on pace at the moment. Raikkonen not really getting away from Michael Schumacher, just the 1.6 seconds between them. But they are dropping Fisichella. Where's Fisichella? He should be quicker than that at the moment. Massa just a couple of seconds behind Fisichella in 5th. Montoya was lucky with that Heidfeld thing. It really has released him, but he doesn't appear to have the pace that's going to haul him up to the main pack. Probably because of the damage that Ted was telling us about on the side pods. It's going to interfere with the cooling, with the aerodynamics, with probably some systems too.
That last lap of Michael Schumacher is a good half second slower than race leader Alonso and Kimi Raikkonen, so he is being dropped by the front two. Trying hard though. Fisichella 4th, Massa in 5th. And well, all the front runners really are more or less the same sort of pace. Honda garage there, only one driver still in it.
Come on, Rubens, your race is with Villeneuve ahead. Now just get into him.
Well, there's no misunderstanding that one, is there? I think it's more of a pep talk rather than a criticism. But it's a marginal call, that one, isn't it, in terms of the tone of it.
Sunny day here at Silverstone. We're halfway through the British Grand Prix. Sadly, we've lost Jenson Button, who qualified badly down in 19th place and was fighting his way through the field absolutely brilliantly, but sadly his engine failed, and he is one of 4 retirements from this Grand Prix. Alonso leading Raikkonen, Michael Schumacher 3rd, Fisichella 4th, and all of the leaders lapping within a 10th or 2 of each other at the moment. But critically for Alonso, around the time of the first pit stops, by running a little bit longer on the fuel than his 2 rivals, he was 3 laps longer than Raikkonen and 4 laps longer than Michael Schumacher. He was able to open out a margin at that point that Raikkonen is now struggling to close down again. He's 12 seconds behind Alonso. Michael Schumacher, though, is only just a second behind the McLaren, and clearly there's a big battle to go on there for who's going to finish second here this afternoon, maybe even for the win if anything happens to Alonso. Fisichella just being dropped a little bit by the others in 4th place. Massa 5th and Montoya in 6th place, but amazing consistency, Martin, from Alonso. His last 5 laps, all within a couple of tenths of each other. It's like a target shooter who always puts the bullet in the bullseye.
I reckon he's out front listening to the Kaiser Chiefs now. I'm looking forward to my CD collection.
Have you ever heard of them? Because he caught you out, didn't he, that guy?
I'm more into the Arctic Monkeys, to be honest. Alonso then 12.6 seconds clear. Raikkonen just beginning to edge back at him. He'll have to keep an eye on that. Schumacher keeping Raikkonen very honest too. And Fisichella just about hanging on. So still a 4-way scrap rather. It's now 18 seconds between them. It's we've got Ron back on the pit wall.
Yeah, Ron Dennis, the boss of the McLaren team, I'm delighted to say, joining us once again from the pit wall. Thank you very much, Ron. Now, you were absolutely right about the fuel stops on the first time around in terms of Renault going a bit longer. What have you done here to try and keep yourself in front of Ferrari and deal with Renault here this afternoon?
Let's probably realise we fueled a bit longer with Kimi than Michael, so unless something untoward happens, and as long as we keep the pace up, we should be able to stay ahead of him and Fisichella. So, of course, we're quite a bit behind Alonso now. At least he's driving for us next year, which puts a smile on our faces, I suppose. But other than that, it's going to be an interesting race as the final strategies unfold.
Ron, how accurately do you time the fueling of your competitors? Have you got people down there really understanding exactly when the nozzle went on and came off?
Yeah, we measure those actions 3 or 4 times. 3 people, guys back at Woking, monitoring things carefully. And normally after everything's sort of quietened down, we get within a few tenths of a second of accuracy, and of course that allows us with fuel flow to determine fuel load.
Sounds very quiet where you are all of a sudden, but the race is still very much on. So Kimi now just 11.7 seconds behind. Alonso had a scruffy lap behind some traffic, but do you think you can come back at him? Do you think you've got a chance to win this race still?
Obviously the gap's pretty big now. Hauling him in is unlikely unless he has a problem. Target now is to stay ahead of Michael. Obviously quicker through Sector 2 and Sector 3 most of the time than Michael. He picks up a bit of time in the first sector, but I think we have enough pace to beat him.
Ron, finally, obviously the British fans here today aren't going to see a British victory in Formula 1, but we saw a magic victory for Lewis Hamilton in GP2. He's your protege. What can you tell us about his future?
I'm in the middle of a Grand Prix now, but he's obviously a great talent, and our strategy for the next few weeks is to keep everything calm. It's highly likely he'll be in Formula 1 with which next year, with which team's a bit premature to say, but at the moment he's doing everything right. The most important thing is not to read his own press, keep off the podium, which everybody wants to put him on, and just concentrate on the job. And
the damage to Montoya, obviously not sending the temperatures through the roof at the moment.
No, it's a little bit of an unfortunate. Had a pretty bad knock at the beginning of the race, but we were able to establish through the data that the car was safe. Nothing had been too badly damaged. Temperatures are in control. It's a little bit out of balance now, which is making it a little more difficult for him to drive, but I'm sure he's going to soldier on, and who knows what's going to happen in front of us.
Ron, we know you're incredibly busy on that pit wall. We really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us and all the fans around the world. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ron Dennis there, the boss of McLaren, giving us the inside scoop on the way their race is unfolding. Not too optimistic about beating Alonso from the sounds of things, but a great scrap between Raikkonen and Michael Schumacher for second place here.
Yeah, just a second, 0.2 between them. They are still coming back at Alonso, though. Alonso is going to have to just pick it up a little bit. We saw Michael run a bit wide through Copse a couple of corners ago while we were listening, a couple of laps ago while we were listening to Ron Dennis. So he's on the ragged edge, pushing as hard as he can, but at the moment Raikkonen has still got the measure of him. Second and third they're running. Fisichella is still falling back.
Well, Fisichella has got 3 laps more fuel than Michael Schumacher, and he's only 4 seconds behind him. That last lap was a good one for Fisichella. He took 9/10 out of Michael Schumacher. So yes, Schumacher's looking forward and thinking about how he can deal with Raikkonen, but he has to, Martin, have one eye, I think, on Fisichella, who, let's face it, is driving the same Renault chassis around this racetrack as Fernando Alonso, who seems to have plenty of speed in it. So Michael's in an awkward pincer movement here, I think.
Ted has news from Ferrari.
And Ross Brawn is trying to figure this out, because as we heard from Ron Dennis, Michael's in a difficult situation. He stopped 2 laps earlier than Kimi Raikkonen. Their stop times were pretty similar, so we're only talking about those 2 laps. Michael hasn't got the ability to stay out longer than Raikkonen and put the hot laps in to try and get him in the stop. So you can see Ross Brawn now, he's hunched over, he's looking at all the figures. He needs to figure out a way to get past Kimi Raikkonen, because Ferrari believe that their car is quicker than the McLaren, but I don't see how he's going to do it, Martin.
I haven't seen anything on track to suggest that either. They've been pretty even Stevens, haven't they, since the start of the race. But it's the gap's a second, 0.9 now, so Raikkonen just easing it out a little bit.
Schumacher across the line then. And let's have a listen. First half of the lap, they hardly touched the brakes. Listen. That was 175 mile an hour in Copse. Here comes Maggots. That's just a gear change, no brake. Onto the hanger straight, up to 195 miles an hour. And listen to the engine just stow. Again, they don't touch the brakes, just go down a couple of gears. Listen.
I think in race conditions, they'll need a touch of brake pedal into there, but it's still mighty fast. That's why they're struggling to overtake around there this afternoon. There's no braking zones anymore, so to speak. That's where the overtaking gets done, and that's clearly going to change for next year when we're back, I think, onto one tyre manufacturer, and it'll change again significantly for 2008. That's the problem they've got. The cars are just so good.
Well, we saw them, the change of direction you saw is Maggots and then into the Beckett's corners. That's where the accident was on the first lap. A wonderful ride on board there with Michael Schumacher. And the cars, Formula 1 car, at that point, has got a lateral load on it of 4.5 G. So that's 4.5 times Schumacher's body weight, pushing him to the side of the car, then shifting immediately in a split second to the other side of the car, and then back again. Imagine the force on your neck and your ribs and your arms. In the meantime, the weight of air passing over the wings of the car is equivalent to 2,500 kilos of downforce. That's like putting a Rolls-Royce on top of the car, pushing it down to the racetrack, and that's why they're able to go through there just as quickly as they are. What does it feel like being in the cockpit?
Well, it feels great because you throw the steering wheel at the corner, the car just sticks, and it's just this incredible energy level, and the scenery's rushing past your peripheral vision. And it actually all feels very calm when you get used to it, but it's when it all goes horribly wrong you suddenly realise just how fast you're travelling. Alonso leads then on lap 37, 11 seconds now ahead of Kimi Räikkönen. Räikkönen is definitely coming back at him, and Michael Schumacher hanging on a second further behind in the Ferrari, third at the moment.
Traffic then. McLaren, it's very similar to the Midland in many ways in terms of colour scheme. You want to tell them apart, just look at the rear wing, that's the absolute telltale. The Midland has a white rear wing, and there you can see the McLaren has a red one. The Midland just getting out of the way of the Ferrari then of Michael Schumacher, chasing down Kimi Räikkönen for second place, as he has done throughout this Grand Prix really. See a very sizable crowd all the way around this racetrack. It's not one of those places where everybody sits around the pit straight in the complex, just the slow speed stuff. There's huge crowds down here at Stowe, in the Vale as well. What is the capacity crowd here at Silverstone these days? It changes year by year. Is it sort of 75, 80,000? I
thought it was nearer 90,000 in terms of the maximum allowed through the gate for safety reasons and logistical reasons, and pretty much looking capacity, isn't it, from what we can see. Good crowd, good atmosphere, fantastic track conditions.
First man to pit, first time round, Jarno Trulli. He came in on lap 17. He's made it as far as lap 38, 21 laps into his second stint then. We were a little surprised when he pitted early first time round. How far had he got through the field? He was in 11th place when he made that stop. Ralf Schumacher, his teammate, is out of the Grand Prix. And so that means it's looking tough for Toyota to score any World Championship points this season. And they've only had 3 point scoring finishes this season, the highlight of which clearly was Ralf Schumacher's podium in Australia. Well, Alonso looks very composed at the front. Seems to have this one quite nicely under control as we approach 2/3 distance. The gaps between them pretty static though at the moment. All 3 of them pushing as hard as they can. Approaching 2/3 distance in this British Grand Prix. Fernando Alonso looks to have things under control at the front, but behind him, Kimi Räikkönen, Michael Schumacher and Giancarlo Fisichella are pretty close together on the racetrack, and any one of those 3 could finish second, third or fourth. Still a lot of racing to go here at Silverstone. Massa is 5th, Haven't seen too much of him this afternoon. He's more or less on his own, really, in 5th place. Montoya is 18 seconds behind him in the second McLaren in 6th spot. Nick Heidfeld had a wonderful start, running as high as 2nd place before his first round of pit stops. He is on for another points finish for BMW Sauber. It would be their 6th in 8 races if they could do it. What a turnaround since BMW took over from Sauber. He's in 7th place. And Rosberg, a charging Nico Rosberg, is currently up in 8th place. Can he get a point after a very unpromising free practice and qualifying for the Williams team?
4 retirements, Brittain with some kind of either hydraulic or oil line off or an engine failure, but I suspect not the engine failure at that time. Speed, who collected Ralf Schumacher, and then he was in turn collected by Webber on the first lap, so we lost 3 of them before they managed to get a mile into the Grand Prix, unfortunately. Michael Schumacher, interestingly, has just posted his fastest lap of the race so far. Now, we were talking about this in the paddock before the race in terms of the track is changing a lot, and is it going to come to the Bridgestone runners or the Michelin runners? There's been a lot of activity out there this weekend on the racetrack, and it's a living thing, and I think it's suddenly Michael appears to have the better pace out there and is coming back at Raikkonen, so that's an interesting turn of events. Meanwhile, he's dropped Fisichella, who's 4th, now 6 seconds adrift. Coulthard, I suspect, has got problems. He's lapping very slowly. He just let his teammate Klein go through, and he's now some couple of seconds off the pace. So I wonder if we're seeing the early demise of the remaining British driver in the Grand Prix.
Yeah, let's hope not. Let's hope DC, twice a winner here, of course, of the British Grand Prix, is able to make it to the finish. Not really too much of a chance of points at the moment. He's down in 12th place. And, well, he's only had 2 point scoring finishes this season. It really is very hard for the midfield teams to get anything out of these Grand Prix weekends at the moment, because the big teams are really hogging all the points. Renault have got 91 points, for example, and Red Bull Racing a mere 8, most of which were Coulthard's podium in Monaco 2 weeks ago. So it's hard times in the midfield, but that is the way of Formula One. And there is Coulthard with Jarno Trulli right behind him and catching him pretty quickly.
Still on track, doesn't pit, then David Coulthard. But let's have a look at his lap time. This time, yeah, still pretty slow. So something going on inside there. Ferrari getting ready. Michael Schumacher was in first time last time around, and we know he's in already.
Yeah, that was a quick turnaround. No sooner did you see the mechanics bouncing the tyres onto the pit apron, and Schumacher appeared in the pit lane. So a quick turnaround there for Michael Schumacher, and he is back out again with 19 laps to go to the finish. That's his last stop of the day, just a 2-stop strategy for most of the front runners, or in fact most of the runners here at Silverstone. It's the fastest way to negotiate these 60 laps and carry the fuel that you need to the race. It uses up about 158 kilos of fuel to contest the British Grand Prix. It sounds like a lot, doesn't it? And well, it uses 2.6 kilos of fuel every lap around here.
Yes, the reason I asked Ron then is how closely they can monitor exactly how long the nozzle is on in a pit stop. Is every second there's about 4.5 laps worth of fuel going in the car, 13 litres per second. So it is quite critical to know if you want to be trying to outfox your main rivals, to know exactly when they did manage to get that nozzle on. And Louise has some news at Red Bull.
Yeah, down in the Red Bull garage you can see the team waiting in the pit lane for David Coulthard to come in. He has been complaining of quite bad understeer, so that's probably what accounts for the lack of pace that we've seen. I'll keep an eye on the stop and see if they make some changes to correct that whilst he's in the pit lane.
Well, Rubens Barrichello, meanwhile, has dropped out of the points. He's down in 10th place. And Michael Schumacher, who has just gone out with fuel and a new set of tyres, has just set the fastest middle sector of anybody so far. Kimi Raikkonen is into the pits. It's going to be close between these two.
I tell you what, Kimi's going to have to absolutely nail it, because Schumacher's getting the job done out there. Schumacher, I think, is going to pass him down the pit straight. He is indeed. Look at that. Pulled that one out of the bag when he needed to, and Raikkonen will be gobsmacked to see that Ferrari so far ahead of him, because Michael Schumacher did the fastest second and third sectors of anybody this afternoon on those fresh tyres and gets himself ahead of Kimi Raikkonen.
What a tremendous turnaround for Michael Schumacher and Ferrari. I wonder if it's a case of just concealing his actual pace a little bit, like he did in Imola, do you remember, to Fernando Alonso? Concealed how much speed he really had, and then just around the time of his stop, put the hammer down, set in the purple sector times, and bingo, job done.
Right, now as Barrichello pits for Honda from 10th place, the Renault pit lane, pit wall will be studyingly thinking on an altogether different finish to the afternoon now. They've got a different race on their hands. They look like they had Raikkonen covered, and suddenly they've got to think about how fast Schumacher can be for the rest of the afternoon, the next 17 laps.
Yeah, and don't forget that Giancarlo Fisichella was shaping up to have something to say about Michael Schumacher as well. And he's not that close at the moment, so it's quite interesting times for Renault. A lot of thinking going on for head strategist Pat Simmons as to how they play this. If you're wondering what that motif is, incidentally, on the engine cover of the Renault, it's obviously the UK is one of many countries no tobacco sponsorship allowed, and that is a tiger motif which replaces their normal sponsor logos. The idea being that the tiger is a symbol of protection as Albers makes his pit stop. So Alonso and Fisichella being protected, and I think Renault thinking that perhaps the Tiger might protect Alonso's 21-point lead in this World Championship. But I have a feeling that the other big beast of the jungle, Michael Schumacher, has other ideas.
So Renault getting ready then. Surely for Fernando Alonso. He's got a good cushion. Well, Michael's going to have to take something like 3/4 second a lap out of him, isn't he? So providing this is a solid pit stop with no problems, then Alonso is still in the comfort zone. He just coasts into his pit box, doesn't he? He's not going to frighten anybody away. If you steam in, everybody just backs off a little bit. And, well, perfect.
Absolutely perfect. Everything about this Renault operation at the moment is singing. But as Michael Schumacher, Giancarlo Fisichella goes through to take the lead. He'll make his second stop in a few laps' time. But, as Michael Schumacher was saying the other day, one of these days, sooner or later, Renault and will make a mistake, and Alonso will make a mistake. And when they do, we'll be ready to pounce.
Now that's critical, though. Alonso got out in front of Massa. Now Ferrari would have loved to have had Massa in there, and with a chance of at least spoiling some of the afternoon of Alonso. But Alonso's just got back out in front of him, so we're not expecting any problems there. And Ted is down in pit lane.
Yeah, I'm in the Ferrari garage, and I tell you what, Alonso will be okay because that was a new set of tyres, Martin. Fernando's last new set of tyres that he put on there, so he should be able to stay ahead of Massa, no problem. But also, Ferrari down here, they're absolutely stunned by Michael's pace because on that last in-lap, they also put a new set of tyres on in his pit stop. But I mean, that wouldn't have made much difference with Raikkonen. But full of admiration down here in the Ferrari garage as they get ready for Massa, who's coming in.
Michael's done it time and time again, hasn't he? Puts the hammer down in critical phases of the race, and I think they won't be as stunned as McLaren were. Massa then clearly getting ready for a pit stop. He's third at the moment. It's a very fast approach to the pit lane here at Silverstone. You've got to get it all slowed down to 100 kilometers per hour, about 62 miles an hour before a white line you can't really see as you're peeping over the top of your steering wheel. Fisichella away cleanly.
Yep, briefly led the British Grand Prix, Giancarlo Fisichella. This is the front wing of Felipe Massa as he pulls out of the pit lane as well and rejoins. Got as high as third place then, but he'll now drop back behind Michael Schumacher and Kimi Raikkonen as Juan Pablo Montoya in the McLaren also makes a pit. Look at the curvature of that front wing, and look at the damage of the side pod, left-hand side of Montoya's car.
Fuel nozzle was only just out of the way. It was down to fractions. And how's this going to work out? Is that the Toyota? Who was that going through there? Now it's Heidfeld. Has he got back in front? Genuinely back in front? He's got a
Heidfeld and Villeneuve. In fact, they're together on the racetrack. Heidfeld is, well, not together, but they are they're 7th and 8th. And in fact, Heidfeld's well gone. Villeneuve was the car in front. So Montoya's dropped back behind both of the BMW Saubers.
But they've both got to stop again.
They have, but well, Heidfeld 16 seconds up the road from Montoya, and some time to go yet. So I wonder whether Heidfeld's going to be able to leapfrog Montoya. That's going to be something, isn't it? BMW Sauber leapfrogging a McLaren.
That pits from P12, started P11. Not been a great afternoon, has it, in terms of roll pace? I think DC expected a little bit better than that. Clean enough stop, away he goes. It's so hard to not trigger the anti-stall systems and all sorts of systems on these cars. I found when I was driving the Red Bull a couple of weeks ago here, just so many systems on the car that you've got to work your way around. And we'll see. I love this camera angle of Michael Schumacher, the maestro at work.
Well, Heidfeld has just come into the pit, so he wasn't able to go as far as he would have liked to have done relative to Montoya. I don't think he's going to have had enough time to leapfrog Montoya. Probably isn't going to work out for him.
Same as last time, isn't it? Well, not as bad as last time, but just somehow not being able to find first or any kind of clutch engagement.
Here comes Villeneuve through, so no, Heidfeld drops back behind Montoya, I believe. So a few problems to be worked on there in pit stops for BMW Sauber. We're right on board with Michael Schumacher. 14 laps to go here at Silverstone. G-forces there on the driver's neck through that complex of corners, Maggots and Beckett's, as Alonso puts another lap on the Super Aguri there. 18 cars still running, still just the 4 retirements: Button, Speed, Ralf Schumacher and Mark Webber, and 3 of those were from a single incident on the opening lap. That's the top 8 at the moment. Villeneuve has yet to make his second stop. And you can see that Heidfeld, with the various delays he had getting away from his pit stop, I think but for that, he almost certainly would be on terms with Montoya. He's 11 seconds behind him, and he lost about that, maybe slightly more, with 2 slow getaways.
Williams has had better pace than I thought it would. And they were nowhere in qualifying when they sort of throwing their arms up in the air with a total lack of pace, but Rosberg still banging on the door for a point or 2 this afternoon, and pretty sensible pace too. He's also lapping in the 122s, same pace as the leaders, so Rosberg driving nicely.
Closing stages of the British Grand Prix from Silverstone. Terrific crowd here this afternoon. We've had 4 days of unbroken sunshine. We watched the England-Paraguay game on the giant screens here yesterday. A wonderful turnout really across the whole weekend, and a carnival atmosphere. Everybody basking in this unpredictably lovely June weather that we've had this weekend, and everybody really enjoying themselves. Unfortunately, we've only got 1 of the 2 British drivers still circulating. David Coulthard is 12th at the moment. We lost Jenson Button fairly early on with a failure at the rear end of the car, possibly a hydraulic line or oil line, or possibly even an engine failure. So very disappointing for him, having qualified in 19th place. He was fighting his way well through the field and got as high as 12th before that failure. Off the start then, pole sitter Alonso, Kimi Raikkonen and Michael Schumacher away in formation. And there was a crash behind them, though, between Scott Speed, Mark Webber and Ralf Schumacher, which eliminated all three of them, and which the stewards are currently thinking about. Certainly Martin, up here in the commentary box with me, pinned the blame squarely on the Toro Rosso driver, Scott Speed. First round of pit stops, Alonso was able to use the longer fuel that they'd put in his car to build a comfortable lead over Raikkonen, who was second, and Michael Schumacher third. But at the second round of pit stops, Schumacher, possibly concealing his pace in the second stint from the McLaren team, was able to leapfrog Raikkonen, and he is now in second place. He was threatening to close the gap to Alonso, who has had to respond here and up his pace. He was lapping in the mid 1:23s when he had Raikkonen behind him, but now he's gone into the mid 1:22s and is pushing much, much harder in the closing stages of this Grand Prix. Not really able to take any part in the proceedings at the front of the number 2 drivers here this afternoon. Fisichella for Renault is some way off in 4th place. 5th is Massa in the Ferrari, the number 2 driver there, and 6th Montoya in the McLaren. They haven't really been able to join in, although Fisichella briefly threatened to have a bit of a look at Michael Schumacher earlier on. And then we've got 2 BMW Sauber drivers, Heidfeld and Villeneuve, who've managed to get themselves into 7th and 8th places. But Nico Rosberg, here he is in the Williams, is chasing down Villeneuve for that final points-paying position.
Williams have announced they're going to Toyota next year. Well, they haven't announced it actually, but they are, aren't they? Which is bad news for...
You've just announced it.
Well, it was in the comics as well during the week, but let's hope Cosworth finds a berth somewhere. I'm sure they will, because they've put out a stonking engine this year in the back of this Williams, but Williams then moving to the might of Toyota for their engine supply in the future.
Yep, a lot of rumours that they might brand that with the Lexus brand.
Keep pushing at the point in front of you.
There's a World Championship point in front of you, and it's just 1.6 seconds in front of him, and it's Jacques Villeneuve. So Rosberg's coming at him, and Fisichella's coming at Raikkonen too for 3rd and 4th. So I'd like to hear the Renault radio. Would be fascinating right now. They'll be pushing Fizzy very hard because there's a podium there for him.
Yeah, Raikkonen at the moment is a good 7 or 8 tenths of a second slower than the race leader Fernando Alonso and Michael Schumacher as well. So the pace not really there at the moment for the McLaren, and Fisichella is getting onto the same sort of pace as his teammate Alonso at the moment. So there you go. The gap then down to, well, 1.5 seconds between the two of them. Rosberg chasing a point, as we've just been seeing, and he's twice finished in the points so far this season in quite spectacular fashion. And if you can do it here this afternoon after qualifying in 12th place, that would be a great effort for young Nico Rosberg.
Renault's been pretty bulletproof on reliability as well. A 1-3 is beckoning here if Fisichella could find himself a bit of extra pace. Quite where he would make the overtaking move, I'm not entirely sure. It would have to be a Dan Dare move up the inside of Raikkonen somewhere, and another extra spectator for the afternoon that we weren't expecting there, Jenson Button.
I know you've written about it today in the newspapers. I know you've thought about it a lot. You talk to him a lot, as do I. But what's the state of mind of Jenson Button right now, do you think?
Pretty depressed, I'd imagine. It's, you know, as you said earlier, to have to come to the race, the British Grand Prix, and sort of apologise, I think it was a smart thing to do. I didn't actually hear it. I only heard that when you talked about it earlier in the show. But yeah, it's hard for him. At the end of the day, they're young men, and they've been in this since 8, 9 years old, and they've only ever known going to racetracks, and sometimes they don't have the full perspective of life that other people do, have been through a more normal process. And I think the expectation level, the spotlight burning in the back of their necks of having to deliver week in, week out, qualifying, racing, testing, do the PR, and all the travel that goes with the Grand Prix circus. And it's tough for them. It must be really hard for them to balance up what's going on and react and respond accordingly.
And of course, he's been around a few years now, Jenson Button. He started at the age of 20. He's now just 26, but certainly a veteran in those terms. I wonder if there's a feeling that maybe he might miss the boat. You know, that's the greatest fear, isn't it, for Jenson? If Honda don't come up with a good car, he's committed to that team now for the long term. If they don't come up with a good car in the next few years, might he miss the boat? Certainly, there's no question in my mind he's good enough to win Grand Prix, and definitely good enough to string a few together and win a world championship. But as Alonso is proving now, and as Michael Schumacher proved in the last few years, you have to have a winning package underneath you. Then it's just about soaking up the pressure and being able to go out and deliver week in, week out, which is why one driver in a team generally always rises to the top, leaving the other one in his shadow. And certainly in my mind, Jenson's capable of that. He just needs the package under him.
Ted's got some news on Fisichella, who's currently hunting down Raikkonen.
Yeah, Martin, down in the Renault garage, and Renault are giving Fisichella all the revs they can, but they can't give him everything because this engine needs to go and do Montreal, the next race in Canada, and that, as we all know, is such a tough track on engines, so they can't give him full revs, but they're giving him whatever they can. They think he can get that podium, and they're telling him that Kimi is slow in Sector 1, so if Fisi can get up amongst him on the hangar straight, he might be able to slipstream him into Copse.
Very good point indeed, Ted. Yeah, McLaren have been slow all weekend in Sector 1, and that's certainly an opportunity. But Denis Chevrier, who's the boss of Renault on the engine side, was telling us that the crucial thing really from the Renault's point of view on the engine this year is that they've been able to use the revs and the power, the maximum, whenever they want to at critical stages of the race. And he was saying earlier in the weekend, it's a vital part of why Alonso has been able to do what he's done this season and win races. He did it again here today. Around the time of the first pit stops, he clearly turned the engine right up and had tremendous power and performance, and at that point he was able to shake off Raikkonen. The gap went out from about 5 seconds to about 11 seconds in a very brief period of time, and that's one of the secrets of Renault's success. And here now, in the hands of Fisichella, clearly the same thing going on, but the calculation has to be, I don't want to take too much out of it, with, as Ted was saying, Canada coming up, which is such a terribly difficult circuit, not only on engines but on transmissions as well.
We talk about #1 drivers and the world-class drivers that are Alonso, Michael Schumacher and Kimi Raikkonen, and it's only a few tenths per lap, but here we are in the closing stage of the Grand Prix. Michael Schumacher's 20 seconds ahead of his teammate Massa. Alonso's 20 seconds ahead of his teammate Fisichella. And they're looking for fractions, for shavings, but doesn't it make a big difference over 60 laps? And, you know, if you took Alonso out of Renault's equation and then it would be a significantly different story, wouldn't it? Which, of course, is exactly what's going to happen next year when he goes to McLaren.
Yeah, they've got high hopes for their test driver Heikki Kovalainen, but to expect too much of a guy who was in GP2 last year and has been testing this year, I'm sure he'll be very, very fast. And he may well turn out to be another Alonso, but he can't be a team leader in his first season. They've got to put someone else alongside him. And it's interesting, you asked Flavio on the grid about his plans for the future, and he made a joke with you saying, if you stay in Formula 1, Martin, so will I. But there is a lot of talk about it, and Briatore said earlier this weekend he'll make his decision about his future in August. He has a lot of other business interests. He has nightclubs, he has boating businesses, he has manufacturing businesses as well. He's a very busy man, Flavio Briatore. Surely part of the calculation must be, what kind of team will this be without Fernando Alonso in it? Do I want to stick around and not win?
Long way to go, yep, before we have to worry too much about next season. But Fisichella then still homing in on Raikkonen, but the trouble is he's now in that dirty air zone where the turbulent air coming, the air that's worked so hard to pin Raikkonen's McLaren to the racetrack. The turbulence is going over his front wing, and he's...
Makala, you have 8 Ks on him on the straight. Come on, get him. Just payback for Suzuka.
Payback for Suzuka. This is when Kimi overtook him, didn't he, on the last lap, right into turn 1 with a brilliant move at the end of last year. He's got 8 kilometres, 5 miles an hour on him, but I don't think he'll ever get anywhere near enough to use that extra speed, because that'll go up to probably 15 kilometres if he gets a good slipstream.
Yep, Suzuka, the home of the Japanese Grand Prix, and those of us who enjoyed that on F1 ITV will never forget that race. One of the all-time great Grand Prix at the end of the 2005 season. Not only Raikkonen passing Fisichella, but Alonso passing Michael Schumacher around the outside of the legendary 130R corner, where none of us can really ever recall ever seeing anybody pass anybody like that before. It was a classic, no doubt about it. Well, has Fisichella got the bit between his teeth? He certainly was aggressive in Monaco 2 weeks ago. Passed 5 cars around the streets of Monaco, which not too many people do in an afternoon. Came into this weekend on the back of that saying, hey, listen, I'm driving the best I've ever driven in my career. And this is where you're going to see the best of Fisichella. Look how aggressive I was in Monaco. Well, he's got a great opportunity just to repeat that here with 4 laps to go at Silverstone.
It's interesting, isn't it? The radio conversation is great that we can hear it. I think the trouble is I would start thinking about Suzuka as I was heading down the hangar straight, trying to think, yeah, what exactly happened there? But it's a good stimulation for him, you know, okay, let's get even on this. But he's just falling back slightly there. As I say, the turbulent air, he's hit the 1 second barrier and he just can't get through it to get a look at the back of Raikkonen.
As a driver, how much do you actually need those kind of pep talks? I mean, you're pretty self-motivating characters, aren't you? But do you need that, or is it reassuring? Does it give you a bit of extra?
It's something that's relatively new, I think, to be honest, to have those kind of discussions and conversations. I mean, we know that we don't hear any of it, unfortunately, from Ferrari, but we know that Michael talks a lot to his team, even on qualifying laps. I think Michael probably drove that as a new frontier of communication between a driver and his team. But I certainly am from the era where you only spoke when it was absolutely necessary to pass some information over, probably because also the radio systems are much better now too.
Well, it's great that Renault leave their radios open. We really appreciate it. I'm sure you all do at home as well. And wouldn't it be wonderful if we could hear from Ferrari? So why don't you send an email to Ferrari headquarters, to Luca Colliani, and ask him to open up the radio so we can all enjoy the conversations between Ross Brawn and Michael Schumacher. 2 laps to go here in the British Grand Prix. Fernando Alonso looks like he's got it pretty well covered. Michael Schumacher has leapfrogged Kimi Raikkonen in the second round of pit stops, and he is now 10 seconds up the road from the Finn, who has Giancarlo Fisichella breathing down his neck now. The margin less than a second. Felipe Massa is 5th, Montoya 6th, and really the main battle on the racetrack is this Fisichella-Raikkonen battle for the final podium place here this afternoon. The short shifting there.
Yeah, he's really keeping that engine, isn't he? Really low revs, taking the gear up very early in the corner. It tends to calm the wheel spin down a bit there too. Just looks after the rear tyres. You'll lose pace, but that's just not a problem for him.
Definitely the sign. That was Fernando Alonso, of course. Definitely a sign that of a driver managing his race. We cut back then to this scrap for 3rd. And as we were saying, one of the problems here at Silverstone is getting close enough in the dirty air to make a pass with these Formula 1 cars. We have seen it in the past quite a bit, but you do need to be very brave to make your way through here.
His gear shift lights are not even coming up on the steering wheel. He's nowhere near the power band in the thing. It doesn't need to be. He's just cutting back on it, saving it for another day. They're out of sequence though, aren't they? The 2 Renaults, aren't they out of kilter? So presumably Alonso, I've lost track of it a little bit as to who's on the first engine cycle or the second race cycle, but I think Alonso just coasting around, isn't he?
Yeah, the rule, of course, in Formula 1, you have to make an engine last 2 Grand Prix weekends. If you change it at any stage during the weekend, then you take a penalty. 10 places back on the grid is the penalty.
And he is changing it for the next race, so there is no need really to save it. Resting his head against the side of the cockpit. It's been a tough afternoon of high lateral G-force, and I think Alonso's just a little bit bored out there.
Well, he's certainly made it look easy, hasn't he? Fernando Alonso, he can almost get out and push it home now. He's got a 12-second margin, and he's looking for his first British Grand Prix victory to add to his first Monaco victory a couple of weeks ago. This is going to be win number 5 in 8 races so far this season, and what a performance all weekend really from the Spaniard. Fernando Alonso wins.
The world champion, I think, confirms he's the world's best driver right now. That was a perfect performance, wasn't it? He really had the measure of everybody. The track conditions. Schumacher then second, closely followed 8 seconds down the road. In fact, Kimi Raikkonen, Fisichella didn't get the job done. He remains 4th.
And that's interesting because Fisichella has only been on the podium twice this season for Renault, but this is the 14th straight going back into last season for Alonso, and clearly his 8th podium this season. So that is the difference between the two of them at the moment. Alonso is characteristic, playing with the camera.
Beautiful, lovely race, mate. Really, really good, fantastic result. Well done, mate.
So the last unlapped runner will be Rosberg in 9th. He's not going to get that point that was just down the road. Villeneuve takes it. Well, I'm sure he's going to take it. They're still actually making their way around. They were some 70-odd seconds behind. So 7th, 8th and 9th in their final sectors. Heidfeld takes 7th. Villeneuve was 6 seconds behind him, will take the final World Championship point. Rosberg then on the bubble. That's a terrible feeling when you've driven well and you're going home with absolutely nothing. 9th may as well be 19th.
Not a particularly fast race this year, Martin. Over 1 hour 25 minutes, over half a minute slower than last year's Grand Prix, won by Juan Pablo Montoya. So,
a bit of safety car in there, of course.
Yeah, that's right.
Stretched it out, but it's just been so hot. Track temperature 47 degrees. Silverstone, for goodness sake. It's normally about half that, isn't it?
So Alonso adding another 2 points to his World Championship lead over Michael Schumacher. It was 21 coming here, it's now 23. And, well, Schumacher really needs Alonso to make a mistake fairly soon. We've still got 10 races to go in this World Championship, of course. That still means there's another 100 World Championship points available. Plenty of time for Ferrari to put on a winning spurt, but they do need Alonso to have some few misfortunes if they're going to get back on terms, really. And I think it's important, really, for Alonso to leave Renault as a double world champion, because moving to a new team at McLaren, never quite sure. They've lost a few key technical people, not quite sure what the package will be like for next year. To have 2 world championships under your belt makes a big difference. Well, we've seen some strong performances this weekend, right throughout. Jenson Button was going well in the race, if not quite so well in qualifying. Clearly, Alonso dominant at the front. Who's your driver of the day?
I think actually the guys 7th, 8th and 9th did a great job. Heidfeld, Villeneuve and Nico Rosberg sort of outperformed their cars today, but you've got to give it to Alonso. He absolutely was perfect. He did everything he needed to do, got the pace, got them all covered. Michael Schumacher's little stint in the middle there where he surprised, I'm sure, Raikkonen was pretty special. But Alonso for me.
Yeah, so Schumacher can't really get that winning feeling back the way he wants to. At the moment, that feeling is monopolised by Fernando Alonso, who's well on target to get a record points haul here, even eclipsing the years when Schumacher totally dominated Formula One in 2002 and 2004. If Alonso carries on at this rate, he'll surpass that. In bed at night and plans his next victory celebration move, but they get more and more bizarre with every race he wins.
It's out of a movie, isn't it? A movie that him and his mates like to watch. Apparently, all kinds of things going on. We'll have to...
Oh no, you're out of touch, mate. That was like 5 races ago.
Oh, was it? What
yeah, something different. Who knows? Who knows? It looks like something from the garden, a garden gnome position.
Raikkonen will be too happy on the podium with that 3rd. I think he may have felt he should have and could have had Michael Schumacher covered this afternoon. Schumi will feel that he didn't have the pace, made the best of a bad job, but Ferrari was so punchy after that test last week, weren't they, when they went so well in Barcelona, and casting an eye over his competitors. Michael, just about the only one with his brain still engaged, having a look at the rear tyres and general condition of the competitors, but he very much wears his mood on his face, doesn't he, Michael? You can read him like a book.
Very much so, and I think that face tells you that he knows that the car wasn't quite quick enough. Yep. That's a look we've seen before, isn't it? It's a look that says, this is the summer in which I'm deciding whether to carry on in Formula One, and at the moment, the picture is not massively rosy. There's Sabine Kem, his right-hand woman, making her way up the stairs behind him towards the podium.
Was Michael there just pushing the cameraman back down, saying, stay clear? Not a happy bunny. Yeah, Michael not keen for the camera to follow him up the stairs. Maybe it's not his best angle.
Well, he didn't get weighed, did he, on the way up? He's gone straight up to the podium, so maybe there was some conversation about that. There is Kimi Räikkönen, who finished third, ran second for a lot of the Grand Prix, and there's your winner, Fernando Alonso, looking as cool as a cucumber. He doesn't mind the camera one little bit.
What Spanish is for cucumber, I'll find out. This is going to be an interesting podium.
Just getting ready for the formalities to go out on the podium. Always an interesting moment just to see the drivers, their reflections.
Not a bead of sweat on him as usual. He always looks in better condition than the other drivers, doesn't he? Even those that are sort of 10, 12 years his junior.
You know, she doesn't really talk to Alonso. They don't really talk to each other, do they? There's Remy Taffin, the engine engineer for Fernando Alonso. We've had Rod Nelson, the chassis engineer, up there in the past. I guess he wins so often now that members of the cast to join him up there. Margin in the end, almost 14 seconds over Michael Schumacher, and that is quite a margin. Peter Hain then, member of the Cabinet, Secretary of State for Northern Ireland and Wales. I had dinner with him last night, entertaining company he is too, and he presents the prize to Fernando Alonso.
What I love about the British Formula One fans, they're ready to support the Spaniards and the Germans. You know, they appreciate excellence, as well as, of course, supporting their own very strongly.
Absolutely right. So another race victory for Renault. It may be number 5 for Alonso. It's number 6 this season out of 8 for Renault, of course. Only Michael Schumacher, with his 2 wins at the Nürburgring and Imola, has managed to break through the Renault stranglehold. Minister for Sport there, presenting Michael Schumacher with his trophy. He's come to Silverstone 15 times. And, well, he's won this race 3 times, which might sound a lot, but compared to places where other places he's won 7 and 8 times, he's always had a bit of a thing at Silverstone. Only 1 pole position as well in all of those 15 years. And Kimi Räikkönen, he'll be annoyed to have lost 2nd place to Schumacher. He had it covered in the early part of the Grand Prix, but Ferrari and Schumacher able to get past him in the 2nd round of pit stops.
Congratulations all round from the podium party, who now leave the rostrum.
Well, it wasn't a thrilling British Grand Prix, but it was certainly an entertaining one. I think we're going to have to rely on the football team if we want any British sporting success in the near future. Meanwhile, here at Silverstone, Fernando Alonso has showed us his class. He really owns Formula One at the moment.